Hi guys, Marcela here. 2 years ago, I made a little video for you about how I prepared for the Ayreon shows that we had back in 2023 with Life Beneath the Waves. And you thought it was a good idea for me to do another one for this year's show, An Amazing Fly Through Time. So here I am. I didn't plan on doing this today. We were supposed to have another rehearsal with the lovely Harmonies Unveiled ladies. But since we had a rehearsal yesterday and everything went really well, and we went through all of the material that we were going to check today as well, I have the day off. So here I am doing this video. I also purposefully haven't sung all that much as I'm recording this, and I haven't warmed up my voice at all, because I'm curious if we can also hear the difference as I do some exercises, because I think my voice still sounds a little bit, like recently woken up, even though I've been awake for quite some time. But I haven't spoken much, so it's a little bit lower and maybe a little bit crackly and maybe a little bit less clear than I would want it. So let's see what happens. For starters, these shows were a little bit less stressful for me than the previous ones, because in the previous ones, not only did we have with the backing vocals a whole bunch of really, really high, loud notes, as we did this time as well, but we also had some really, really high classical notes, if you remember in Ride the Comet and the Sixth Extension, and those, I really have to check beforehand, like, can I actually reach these notes? Am I actually able to hit that, that flute register stuff? And we didn't have any of those this time, so that for me was a little bit more relaxed. We did have a few other challenges that I'm going to talk about in a few, but at least when it came to classical, it felt really safe. We did have Into the Black Hole, that also goes a little bit high, but I know I can hit those, so I'm not too worried about those. I think the focus for me this time was to try to maximize my vocal output without having to work too hard. Because a lot of the songs that we had this time are deceivingly difficult, They sound very loud and very belty, but they're all above the threshold of what can be, belted out in your chest voice in mode 1. But they're not high enough that you can just squeak everything. Last time we had a lot of things like Fate of Man, that are so high that it's just brightness, and I don't have to worry about mixing all that much the two registers. And this time we did have a lot of that. So when I was warming up, my focus was, as I mentioned, to try to make sure that I was working more from projecting my sound correctly, adding a lot of brightness to it instead of trying to be very loud. But okay, so just like last time, I started with the Lax Vox because as you go along and the weekend goes along and you're singing a lot and you maybe have a couple of glasses of wine in the evening, then the voice starts to get a little bit tired. I did have a couple of glasses of wine yesterday evening, so this is actually a very good representation of the state that I was in when we were doing those shows. So, Lax Vox, you know this, I'm just going to bubble, making an ooh sound through this tube, which is 30 centimeters long, 1 centimeter in diameter, and I put it in water, and you make an ooh sound. If my voice is really tired, then maybe I will start with some low notes and just do some accents in there, like and do that for a little while. But that wasn't so much the case with these shows, luckily. So I just started doing some sirens. I glide from a low note and to a high note and then back. I try to go a little bit higher every time and a little bit lower every time. And I did get some questions about it last time. This is the sound that you make through this is not so much about quality, but just about stretching, right? So yes, you are flipping from mode 1 to mode 2. You're going from your chest voice to your head voice. That is perfectly fine. It is about stretching our vocal folds and getting them ready to do some hard work. I haven't done all that much talking, singing today, so I'm going to do this for a little while. And then at some point, it's just nice to do some scales with it, you know, just some things that you can repeat. I think I started with 9.3 from Universal Voice, which is basically a major scale that goes all the way up to a ninth and then back. And I would do it with the Lax Vox, and I would alternate and do it also sometimes with a lip drill. And then I would repeat the same thing, but then with a lip drill, just because I wanted to get more breath flow going. This is the A flat version, there's a C version and there's an E version, and I would do the three of them. So then I also did some other exercises that are a little bit more classical. So I did this exercise, which is an arpeggio of sorts on a whole octave. I'll show you how that sounds. And I did it using a trumpet sound. It sounds like this. You fill your cheeks with air, and you let a tiny little bit of air through your lips. So you have a sound that sounds a little bit like a trumpet. And this is what that exercise sounds like. This is, by the way, 8.9 C from Universal Voice. Afterwards, what I did was actually do quite a few exercises with this little device, the Universal Voice straw, which I'm not sure if I've shown you before, but this little tool is something that I've been using a lot lately. It's basically a straw that has 5 different levels that you can work with. If you can see this, it has 5 little holes. So what that does is that you can adjust the level of breath pressure that you get from the straw. Because on 5, for instance, when all of the little holes are exposed, you feel a little bit less pressure, so it's going to be easier to go to higher notes and do things where you require more breath flow. But when you put it on lower levels, you're going to feel the resistance a little bit more. And what that does, I'm not going to go into all of the science, guys, but this really helps to create a sound that is clear and that is free and that has a lot of brightness, that has a lot of buzziness. And all of this without pushing too hard or trying to be very, very loud. This really helped me find more clarity and more brightness in my voice. And it also has the added value that you're not, disturbing people by being very loud on the backstage. So I liked it also as well because of that. So what I would do is I would start on level 5 and then just do some sounds, some notes, like some little accents like we did on the Lax Vox in the beginning. And here again, it's not about being loud. It's about the sound being very nice and bright and buzzy. Alberto Terdus, who is the genius behind Universal Voice, describes this as thinking as if you were singing or making sound through a kazoo. So looking for something that is nice and buzzy. So I would do a few notes like that, a few different notes on level 5. Again, the switching between mode 1 and mode 2 doesn't matter. Then I would do the same thing, but on level 3. You can feel more resistance. I don't know if you can hear it, but I already hear more clarity and more projection in my voice. Same thing, but then on level 1. So just one little hole exposed. What's also important when you're doing this, by the way, is that you try to make the sound clear so that you don't hear that you're blowing air through the straw. See how you can hear some air? It's better if you think of sound that is clear so that we don't hear that air coming out of the straw. And it's also important that you don't puff your cheeks. So you're blowing too much air when you do that. So your cheeks stay nice and flat against your teeth, and preferably you make a sound that is clear and it's a little bit buzzy. If I want some extra help, some extra clarity, then I will put the straw on level 2. So 2 little holes are open, but I will block the lowest one. So I'm just phonating through the hole that is labeled as number 2, because the lowest one is a little bit bigger. So when you do this, you have even more resistance. So it feels more difficult to go to higher notes when you have such resistance, but that's fine. This will still aid to give more clarity and more projection to the sound. I don't know if you can hear it. I can definitely hear it. Okay, so what then I would do is maybe do something a little bit lower pitch, kind of like in speech territory. I would put the straw on level 3. So 3 little holes are open. There you see. And then I would do a major third exercise on A flat. 3.5 from Universal Voice. Sounds like this. And then I would repeat the same exercise, but I would go over to an ah on the high note and try to retain the same quality that I have on the straw when I'm going to an ah. If I hear my voice shaking a little bit like I just did, I would probably repeat this thing, but maybe try level 2 to see if I can get even more clarity. That's better. Feeling the wine, feeling the wine. It's a little bit slimy. And then I would do the same thing, but then in C. Probably now on level 3. There you go. We're getting there. We're getting there. And then to wrap it up, if I feel like I needed to do a little bit more, then I would do a little bit of a longer scale with the straw as well. Also on level 3, I would do maybe 5.1, a fifth, 3 times up and down. Let's see how that feels. And then maybe the same thing in E. And then I would just try out some things, some things that I know that I have to sing. Can you feel me touch your aching heart? I can sense how much you're missing me. And with this, I feel ready to do most of the things on the show, except that when Ayreon told us that we were doing Loser again, I thought, okay, this is a moment I want to do some screams. Because as you know, I teach vocals at the Metal Factory, and I have been working on my death screams this year. So, I really wanted to show them up and try to do something Not exactly like Devin Townsend does on the track, because for me it's impossible. I have no idea how he does what he's doing, by the way. But something that sounds a little bit similar, a little bit aggressive. So with Irene and I, we decided that I was going to do like the brighter, sort of like squeakier screams on this part, and she was going to do some grunts on the offbeats, you know, like that part, as Devin Townsend does in the original version of Loser. And this woman, seriously, let me take a second to tell you what a force of nature Irene Jansen is. She is so talented. I am not exaggerating when I tell you that I taught her how to do grunts in 5 minutes. And then she could just do it. Yeah, it's crazy. She's amazing. So for me to try to find that scream, I really tried to find it before the show, so to know that I would be able to do it. And I would be on the side of the stage also just right before the part started, checking where it was again, which I'm pretty sure was also very annoying to everyone that was in the coulisses. So what I do is I try to find a note in distortion and a low note for me. The sound is a little bit breathy. It's not too loud. And I try to see if I can find that sweet spot where I have a decent amount of distortion, but that it doesn't sound choked up or too pressed. I think that's good. And then what I would do is I would try to imagine that I go from that note to something that it's a little bit higher and a little bit breathier, and really focusing on the projection, the brightness, the buzziness that I have also when I'm phonating through the straw. So and I really have to make sure that it has a lot of that brightness, a lot of that projection. Because otherwise, it's just not going to work. I'm going to be working very hard and you're not going to hear anything. So do keep in mind that sound is very soft in volume. It's considerably softer in volume than anything else that I did on the show. Which I should have told the front of house now in hindsight. But yeah, so it's much more about the projection and the brightness that you have in it than something that is very, very loud. And it is pressed, of course, and there's always a risk involved in that. But if you have spent some time, trying to find that sweet spot where you have a nice amount of distortion with your false vocal folds without it sounding choked up, then you're fine. And it is a bit of a pressed sound, so I was a little bit stressed about doing that and having to sing a lot of clear, nice, high as F belt parts afterwards. But having that very nice projected sound, really working on having that brightness in my voice and not working too hard, I think that really helped me through the whole process. And it ended up being very enjoyable. I got to sing one of my favorite Ayreon songs of all time, Dragon on the Sea. So we call our greatest man to run the barricade. Shine your light when shadows fall and wash the night away. So I was very excited. I enjoyed every minute of it. And I, once again, want to thank Ayreon for having me be part of the show again, because I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Okay, there you go. That's how I warmed up and prepared for the amazing fly through time shows, the 30th anniversary of Ayreon. I hope you found this interesting. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions about the things that I just did. I hope I explained everything clearly. And if you're interested in getting one of these straws, I'll put the link in the description. I am not getting any money from them, just so you know. Thanks for watching, and I will see you the next time. Bye-bye.